Hey, practice owners, welcome back to another edition of Coming Back Stronger. I am thrilled to have our guest on, long time friend of the Profitable Dentist magazine, Dr. Mark Costas. I was trying to think of, Mark, I was going to make a list of all the things you've done in dentistry, and it's too long, and we only have about 45 minutes. So, still practicing dentist. You speak, you've got the Dentalpreneur podcast, which is, we'll talk about almost 1,000 episodes now.
Hard to believe, but yeah.
Was that if it wasn't the first one, it was close to the first kind of dentist?
I was one of the first five. So it was Howard, myself, Dave Maloli, the Dental Hacks, and Gary Takish. It was just us. And that was back in 2015. And, 3 million downloads later and almost 1,000 episodes. I'm still here.
That is truly amazing.
Yeah, we get between 80 and 100,000 downloads a month still, which is crazy. You'd think that people would be sick of my voice by now. Maybe they are. Maybe they're just listening to make fun of me.
Or maybe you find something newer and smarter to say next time, and they just can't wait to hear the next episode.
I got to give all credit to my guests. Yeah, we've gotten to the point where we've had enough great guests that we just list the people that we've had in the past, including mainstream kind of celebrities, and people almost always say yes to an invite. So we're blessed. We're blessed for sure.
I think the neat thing is, like, what we're doing here is, we talked beforehand, there are different perspectives people bring to the conversation. And then you also have, before I forget, the Dental Success Institute and the Dental Success Network, that we want to make sure we explain how those work and what they are, because, in the context of what we're doing here, and we had talked beforehand, and I know you speak on leadership and systems and things that we'll discuss as we go along here. But, I speak on, because of what I do, I'm not a dentist. I work with, most of them. I reach most of them. And people turn to me for sort of that message. And I always have that same response. Dentistry is very unique. Number one, it's a cottage industry. It's 86% of dental practices are owned by the dentist. And there's nothing close in the professional world. Accountants, the second closest is veterinarians. But after that, it's a long drop to number 3, accountants, lawyers, any kind of profession, physicians. Very few own their practice, or if they do, like physicians, they own it in a group. So they have professionals. They have a CFO that takes care of taxes, and they have an HR company that takes care of hiring and firing. Dentistry's not like that. So as a dentist, you have to take that dentist mindset that when you went to dental school, it teaches you protocol and step-by-step. And and Mark, I remember, I got into dentistry through the lab business. I remember when I first started looking at supplies, and we had to buy, it was like 22 different kinds of gold. And you may not be old enough to know how this works, but years ago, you would come out of the University of Kentucky Dental School, and you would only use, and I'm going to get it wrong, so I don't need, no emails from lab guys. I'm making this up. But it'd be like 28% this and 7% that. It was some unique balance of gold. And I remember looking, and gold wasn't cheap. Gold was $2,000 an ounce. I had a safe full of gold. And I said, sure, how different can it be in a person's mouth? But when you talk to somebody, this is the gold you've got to have because Professor such and such said so. And I don't know the difference, but this is the one I'm doing because of that. Now, fortunately, over the years, for me, in the lab business, zirconia has come along, and all these things have come along, and students now don't even know about gold. But you would have a gold sheet, and it would have, there might be 100 different formulations of gold, and that's what you had to have. So that's the dentist mindset, and you don't deviate from it for the next 40 years.
Right.
The practice.
I still prep my class 2s and my crown preps the same way that the first instructor that taught me how to do it, my 3rd year of dental school, and still drop my mandibular blocks the same exact way. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that's good.
We are creatures of habit, and when we learn a protocol, it's very difficult, especially if it's working. It's very difficult and unnecessary, really, to deviate from that. So now, I have my class 2 way of prepping. I have my crown prep way of prepping. I have my mandibular block way of prepping. Of delivering, and now I'm just going to go learn the same kind of formulaic approach to ortho and and dropping implants and hybrid restorative. And so, we build one thing on top of another, but I know exactly what you mean. We're very much pragmatic, left brain, stepwise thinkers, which is problematic because when you go over to the other side of this 86% of the people that actually own dental practices, it's not that pragmatic and stepwise. There's a lot more creativity and self-education that needs to happen because we don't learn it the same way that we learn the actual clinical stuff in dental school.
Well,
That's
and the
where
outcomes,
the problems come in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, outcomes can change wildly. And I had, in fact, so when I get asked, how should I do this? And I've had, I've had docs reach out to me and say, I actually had somebody probably 4 years ago, reached out and said, and as you know, our courses used to be all DVDs, and we're bringing those online through our education portal. But I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I've been doing this about 25 years. I'm thinking of starting a group, and I want it to be about 5 dentists. I already know who they are, and it's going to be about $5 million. Do you have a DVD that can tell me how to do that? And I at first I would think, are you joking? I mean, but not really. And I think that's where you have to learn to separate your mindsets and say, listen, the dentist in me needs to stay over here right now, especially, in this time, especially with a lot of changes that are coming along in the dental world. And, you and I were talking beforehand, you've got some really good numbers about reopening and sustainable and who might survive, who might not survive. And so I'd like to sort of start there if you want. The number of docs or practices of these sole practicing single entrepreneur enterprises that just, may not come back. We know a lot of restaurants aren't coming back.
Yeah, we have several in my little community that aren't, which is sad. I want to go back to the point that you made though about this five doctor practice. Searching for resources. This is so common, right? People get out of dental school and they don't know where to turn. They say, okay, I just got approved for $1 million. I can do crown preps, I can do implants, I can do exodontia. And the bank is lending me $1 million to run this operation that I have no idea how to run, and they have no idea where to turn. So this story that you tell is so common. I see it all the time. They on a grander scale, they're just looking for a little bit of guidance, and they have no idea where to turn. Right. There's so few organized resources that say, here's how you run a dental practice. Here's how you read a P&L. Here's what a balance sheet is. Here's what a cash flow statement is. And here's why it's different than a P&L and a balance sheet. Here's how you apply that to the actual business. Here's what you do if there's a mutiny in your office because you're a terrible leader and because your culture is toxic. Here's what you do. Here are some practical approaches to that. There's nowhere to find that information for so many people, especially if you're isolated. Dentistry is a very isolating profession. So people turn to the free forums, and depending on which free forum you end up on, it could be a super toxic negative free forum. It could be super snarky and they don't want to talk about business at all because it's unpure. And then it could be something on the totally other end where you're just getting bad advice from bad CPAs or non-CPAs that are speculating. So I get it, man. There is no central place to get all this information like a dental school, which is why, we created the Dental Success Institute, which is why I started the Dentalpreneur podcast and why I only have vetted experts on there that are giving, their really vetted information and advice, as opposed to somebody that has had one practice or is a D4 and is dispensing business advice, which could get you in a lot of trouble. And I've made just about every mistake you could possibly make because I came up with my own conclusions and I took bad advice. So I love that point. To your second point, I don't have any real solid stats. I did see a post from the New Jersey Dental Board that said about 20% conservatively of dental practices in New Jersey are probably not going to reopen.
Okay.
If you expand that out, I've heard several people speculate, and this is just about as much speculation as people had about the death rate and of this pandemic. And I don't want to diminish the importance of the health crisis that we're in right now, but people grossly overestimated the death rate. And there's a lot of speculators and there's still people that are speculating how much this will affect the world as far as death rates and moving forward, what that's going to look like. Also people speculating about the overall economy, and then people are speculating about dentistry in general and how it's going to affect. I've seen percentages that range anywhere from 15 to 40% of dental offices that won't reopen, or if they do reopen, they won't last a year. So I think personally that the people that are the most susceptible, the practices that are the most susceptible, are the practices that are maybe between $400,000 in gross revenue to about $750,000 in gross revenue, that were already struggling to get new patients before the pandemic, and haven't really tightened up their cash flow, because things are only going to get tighter for a period of time. So they may have gotten a boost from the PPP. They may be able to reopen because the team is still there, because the team was supported by, turbocharged unemployment, but they may find difficulty and challenge when they come back to work. I don't know exactly what the percentages will be, but logic is telling me that there are certain practices and a certain type of practice that's going to struggle more than some of the more established practices.
My gut is the same. Again, sort of anecdotal research is about the same.
Yeah.
Some of them by choice. Some of them were retiring a year or two from now. And what I'm hearing is, is a couple different buckets you can put them in. One is docs who are 65, 63, were a couple years away and saying, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and retire. I'm probably going, and I've got enough cash. I'm going to, what does the ADA say? 96% of practicing dentists don't have enough resources to retire at the age 65. So only 4% have. So those 4% are saying, I have some investments. I have, I've last 25 years, I socked enough away that we can retire. So if I don't get the $1 million for my practice I wanted, if I can fire sale it for half that just goes into my bucket. I'm good. Let me cash out now. I don't want to work that. I've already built my practice once 35 years ago. I fixed it 20 years ago when it was, we were down. I went through a couple recessions. I'm just coming out. I don't know what that percentage is, but I could see that being 10. I can tell you this from my end, in my world, it's a very common discussion right now. Why do I even want to do this? I can afford not to. And then there's the group that falls into they didn't plan, they're in the same vintage. And, I don't know. Honestly, Mark, I don't know what happens to them, because they can't, they've only been a practice owner. They've never worked for anybody else. They can't cash flow out of it. They don't have the resources. Some of their staff's not coming back. So it's it's a tough spot. But to sort of play on what you had said earlier, I think the neat thing, so here's your dentist mindset. You got to park that. Here's your practice owner mindset. The neat thing about what you said about the ownership part is the good and the bad. The bad is, all decisions could be good decisions. You don't know. The good news is all decisions could be good decisions. You don't know. And I think the difference in an entrepreneurial mindset is, and I was trying to think of Larry Ellison, started Oracle. He talks about leadership and decision-making, said, the important thing is to use the facts you have now. You've got to make a decision, move forward. You're the boss. Somebody's got to make it. It's you. Use the resources you have, whatever that might be, pray, flip a coin, do the math, whatever works for you, but make the decision. And then from that point on, it's about making that decision work out the best that it can. Not saying, sheesh, I hit a speed bump. I should have decided the other way. Let me back up and change course. And that we'll talk about here at the end is sort of the leadership that you really got to get a handle on today and now in this situation. Sure. Or you're going to be in that 20% that you don't have the, and maybe you can speak to this. I think the dentist mindset says there's a right decision, a wrong decision. In business, there's just the decision you make and make work. And I think about, we did Craig Spodak, Dr. Spodak, and
Craig.
Craig Spodak. The neat thing about their practices, and I've had them speak before on the same stage, is
I was there with them.
Yes, that's right. In Orlando, I think.
Yeah, that's great.
Craig says he built this gigantic, beautiful office and has all the docs in it.
Dental hospital.
Yeah, dental hospital.
Yep.
And he likes having them all there. And patients come to him and it works. And it's a very, very, very successful dental practice.
Yep.
Pete's in Atlanta.
8-figure dental practice.
Yeah, yep. He has them scattered all over Atlanta. So when I say that, I'll have, Mark, I'll get 20 emails that say, which is the best way? And I'll say, I think you missed the point. They both are the best way. They both work. So what's the best way for you? And that is a challenge. So in the dentist mindset. So what I'd like to do is kind of shift into that, what you think makes that successful as a dentist, as a practicing dentist. Fortunately, you live in both worlds and you've mastered it. You've figured it out. And to me, some of it is about attitude. Somebody who walks into it thinking the worst case scenario, the 2 million people are going to die and, we're going to have a zombie apocalypse. So let's shut down the world. We find out that's not quite the case. The best case mindset says, okay, that's happened. We can't undo it. Can't put the genie back in the bottle. So let's start adapting and moving forward. I think those are the ones that survive. So I don't think it's about the right formula. I think it's about the right mindset and attitude.
I love thoughts. Mindset's one of my favorite words. First of all, Craig and Peter, great friends of mine. What's fun about talking to them is the point counterpoint, right? So Peter is my model. I've had 15 dental practices. I currently have 6, 2 in California, 4 in Arizona. We're looking to potentially, we're going to wait to see what the market does. We're in acquisition mode because I learned my lesson of, if you haven't been in business for longer than 11 years, what is it, 11 years, you've never experienced a bear market before. This 11-year tear has been incredible. So that is why, I gently say that if you were struggling during the last 11 years in this economy, you may struggle during this bear economy, during the financial retraction, because things are going to get tough. The reason I say that is because I actually, as a business owner, I had 6 dental practices going into the last recession. So I know exactly what that feels like. So mindset wise, I already know that the practices that I owned prior to the last recession and the practices that I owned during the recession and the practices that I owned after the recession were the same practices, but they were different practices, right? I had to make a lot of adjustments. Like these were great prior to the recession. In the middle of the recession, I had to do a lot of adjusting. The messaging was different. The marketing was different. The plans that we accepted were different. The financial arrangements that we had with the patients were different. That is when we grew and came up with the idea of a discount dental plan. That was pretty cutting edge back then. Those are some adjustments that we made. And the practices that came out of the other side of it were much stronger. So 3 distinctive types of practices. I think that people that are going into this thing have to realize that the practice or practices that they owned prior to this pandemic, the ones that are you're going to own right coming out of this pandemic, and when the market turns from bear to bull again, those are going to be 3 distinctly different dental practices. So back to your word mindset, your mindset has to match that and has to be able to be flexible enough as an entrepreneur, not a dentist, not a rigid, it has to be these 18 steps to do a crown prep. But as an entrepreneur, you have to think differently. Okay, here's how I did it before. It worked. Great. I'm not going to be so married to those steps and to that and to that type of practice that I'm not willing to be flexible. So what is it going to be for you? What is the messaging going to sound like coming back? How are you going to treat the staff differently? Are people all going to be sitting in the same seats on the bus? Are you going to need more people? Are you going to need less people? Are you going to be doing cosmetic work only and fee for service? Or are you going to have to pivot? Those are the types of questions that you have to ask yourself, but you have to be flexible and realistic enough to know that what you come back to isn't what it was 4 weeks ago.
Right.
It's just going to be different. Does that mean that you're going to fail? Only if you're so rigid and inflexible that you refuse to do it any other way than the way that was successful prior to this thing happening. So that's all I think you need. I think you need resilience. I think you need grit. And I think you need a flexible mindset which is counter to what we are as dentists. That rigid, pragmatic, left brain mindset is very, very rigid and formulaic. This is going to require a little bit of emotional intelligence, a little bit of going out there and seeing what's working, a little bit of experimentation, and that goes against a lot of our programming. And believe me, I'm a left brain, analytical, research based person. But if you're going to be successful in business, you have to be a little bit more flexible and use a little bit more of the right side of your brain.
I think there's also a, we'll talk about this. This is where we're going to have the awful part of the conversation, the nasty part. We're going to talk about the P word, and it's practically it's practically the name of my company, profit. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to ask you this, and I've asked this to a lot of my good dentist / practice owner friends, is where did the idea of profit being a bad thing in dentistry, how did that evolve? And I have a letter here from the ADA when Dr. Woody Oakes started this 30 years ago that says cease and desist. How dare you use the words profitable and dentist in the same sentence? It's demeaning to the profession and yada yada. I mean, and so Woody's answer was a little, which one of the things that I appreciate for him. He said, "So, am I to understand only unprofitable dentists are good dentists?" But there's this like competition. And in business, at the end of the day, there is one measure that you're doing the right thing for your business. And it is you have more money left over than you spent. That's profit. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you take advantage of your patients. It doesn't mean you sell them services they don't need. Just start that conversation. Mark, post that in a Facebook group and you're going to get, it's a flood of all you care about's the money. Well, gosh, that's why I go to work every day. And it's not a bad thing. And I think maybe that's where you can help. A lot of dentists have to get over that and use that as their measure, especially now, because at the end of the day, the bank cares if you're profitable. If you want them to help support you the next 8 months, your landlord really cares if you're profitable. Whoever that relies on the money you pay them really cares that you're profitable because that's what you pay them out of. So you ever thought about that? Or, we've been in that discussion before. It's a tough, I don't know what it is. I really don't know where it came from or what it is, but it's a flaw in your thinking right now to think profit's a bad thing.
Well, I'm just sad that you waited 23 minutes to ask me this question because it's going to take me an hour and a half to answer it. It's not a flippant question, and it is a great question and one that I have scratched my head about since I was D2, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a quick story, but let me tell you this: the reason that I think that it originated that way, mm-hmm. and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm saying this with the utmost of respect. I think that at least several generations of dental school instructors were people that came out of private practice and were not necessarily successful in private practice, or were turned off by having to run a business in the first place, so they stayed in academia. So what we were taught as dental students, and the only reason I feel that I'm qualified to say this as a broad sweeping statement, this is my theory, guys. What we were taught and the attitude that so many of our instructors had about running a business was that it was dirty business and it was unethical to focus on anything other than patient care and having a 3-degree taper and 2-millimeter reduction, right? Anything else that you talk about was unethical. I'll tell you personally, I went to Marquette University School of Dentistry, one of the oldest dental schools in the country. We had to whisper about contracts that were being offered as associates. We weren't even allowed to talk about it in front of certain instructors. No talk about money, no talk about business, no talk about student loans. So let's just get real here. Mm-hmm. If the average dental student is between $200,000 and $450,000 in debt when they graduate from dental school, and we're not allowed to talk about how to run a successful business or any aspects of money, those instructors are doing those students a disservice.
Yeah.
Right? How can you as an institution charge $100,000 a year for your dental education and not allow the students to learn more about how to run a successful business? We're setting this whole generation up for failure. So, I get up on my soapbox, and this is something that I'm passionate about, and I think I just think it's wrong. inherently wrong.
And especially now, it's dangerous. I mean,
Yeah,
it is, you know, if
of
you
course.
don't understand that, Mark, I can't tell you how many docs I've told who are not open yet. They took PPP money 6 weeks ago now.
Yeah, they have 2 more weeks to spend it.
Right. They have 2 more weeks to spend 75% of it on staff, or it
Yeah.
becomes a loan at 1%, you know, 6 months pay, which it's not a bad loan.
It's not a bad loan, but
It's a better grant. It's a better scholarship. It's a
still
better
due in 2 years, though. I mean, if you get $100,000 loan that's due in 2 years, it's still going to put strain on the business.
And that is, I think that's where that challenge is. And I think what I'd like to do is just that, demystify the idea that profit somehow equals being bad to your patients. In fact, I would, so, you know, going to the Indiana University School of Business, we learned just the opposite. You can't have good, healthy, profitable, returning, happy or a business without happy customers, without people who love you, pay you what you ask, and come back and refer them to your friends and family. Whether, I don't care if it's a dress store and they say, oh my gosh, you got to go here, or if it's a candy shop and people say, oh, this is amazing. You know, you still need customers and profit to start it and get bigger and bigger and bigger. But somehow we think that if I'm profitable as a dentist, I'm somehow not being not treating my patients well. And
unethical.
Literally, it's the opposite, isn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah. Let me tell you a quick story. So I graduated from dental school. I was the last graduating class in 2002 in the old, what we call the old building. So there was a brand new state-of-the-art, gorgeous building being built across the street. And good news, it's going to open the year that you graduate. So all of your tuition is paying for this building, but you'll never get to
Right.
appreciate it. So I graduate, and I realized right off the bat, it took me 3 years and 21 attempts to get into dental school. So I really appreciated the profession from the very beginning, because I was an outsider looking in, trying to gain access to this profession, which I knew was the best profession in the world. So I finally got in. It was Marquette. Thank God. Thank you, Marquette. They're the one out of 21 schools that saw a glimmer of hope that I could potentially be something in the profession.
They were
let me
right.
in. Well, thank you. I graduated. They let me in. I knew right off the bat that I had some ground to make up, because my classmates were all 3 or 4 years younger than I was. So I always knew that I wanted to build a multiple practice kind of group. So I got out and I associated for a year, bought 3 practices by the second full year after graduation. Go back for a tour, and a tour of the new dental school. I ended up in Arizona. Go back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm touring the dental school. I went back for a wedding. Bump into my row instructor, the row instructor that I was telling you, that taught me how to drop a mandibular block, taught me how to do a class 2, taught me how to do a crown prep. Bump into him. Oh my gosh, we hug it out. He's an older gentleman, owned 1 practice that had 3 operatories. Okay. We sit down, have a cup of coffee, and he says, hey, Mark, how you doing? It's so great to see you. You look younger than you did when you left. I said, Doc, you look amazing. How are you doing? I'm doing great, Mark. Still have my 3 operatory practice. Can you believe it? For 40 years, I've had 1 employee. She answers the phones, and she's my chairside assistant too. I'll never make $1 million in dentistry, but I know that my patients are well cared for. Enough about me. How are you doing, Mark? I said, I'm doing great, Doc. Thank you so much for asking. I have 3 practices now. I have 3 dental associates. We're growing like crazy. I'm super proud of what we've been able to do. All 3 of the practices are growing. I feel like we're delivering the best care to our patients. And, I'm thinking that my ultimate goal is maybe 10 practices, because the model is working. And he puts his cup of coffee down and looks at me across the table with this look of disappointment. And he says, Mark, I'm really disappointed. I really don't believe that you can deliver the type of care that your patients deserve with that kind of model. And it dawned on me right then and there that this is the message that they're passing on to all of the dental students. And if I trust this guy, I trusted that he passed away, but I trusted this guy more than anybody else in the profession. And he's guiding me away from this multiple practice model, and really just hammering home this old-fashioned idea that you can't deliver good patient care if you have anything larger than a 2 or 3 operatory practice and have more than 1 or 2 employees.
Yeah.
Now, I am completely opposed to that. And I told him, I said, you know what, doc, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree here. My patients get great care. We have great systems in place to ensure that we have quality control systems. We vet out our associates. We train them very, very well. We make sure that everybody on the team is on the same page. We communicate well. And this is why I believe that you don't have to be the person delivering the care and doing all the management and doing everything yourself in order to have a good patient experience and a good dental outcome. So in a nutshell, that is my philosophy. I believe that you can have 50 practices, and if you do it correctly with the right systemization and the right quality control, you can have a great patient experience. It could be the best patient experience. It could be a better patient experience and a better clinical outcome than somebody that has a 3-operatory practice and has done it for 40 years. I think if you do it the right way. So profit, back to the word profit, is very important, and it shouldn't be a 4-letter word in dentistry. You are not unethical if you are a profitable dentist. You are not unethical or putting money before a patient's best interest if you do it the right way. It doesn't have to be binary. It doesn't have to be one thing or another. You can be wealthy in dentistry and be a fantastic clinician at the same time. And I like I said, I could talk about this for hours, and this is something I'm super passionate about, but there's something that happened along the way where profit and money became a bad word in dental education. And I think it comes all the way back down to the philosophies of the people that are willing to teach dental students. And thank God for them, because we need people to teach dental students, but they just need to be able to realize that you can be profitable and you can still deliver the best care to your patients. I think that it's not only possible, but that's how everybody should operate their business. We don't go into business to lose money. I look at these practices, each individual practice, as an organism that is improving the lives of not only the patients that we're treating, but all the people that live and work within this dental practice. So if there's one toxic person within this organization, they're a cancer, they need to be eliminated. If there is a bad mindset or a bad culture, that needs to be fixed right away. If this organism suffers for any reason, all the patients inside the organism and all the people, not just the dentist, but all the people that are living off of the health of this organism will suffer, and as will all of the people that are relying on them to bring home a steady paycheck. So the organism, I think, is more important than anything else. And if you care for this organism, you should be profitable, and it should care for all the people within the organism for a lifetime.
And if, as an entrepreneur, that's the first thing you learn. You have to be hitting on all cylinders for your business to work. And again, 86% of practice or dentists are their own practice owner. Nothing close to that, but 99.999 with a line over % of your education is the clinical part. Not the, how to be successful. And I think the outcome, the result of that is that 96% of dentists are not, this is a study from the ADA, 96% of dentists are not able to retire financially at age 65. Mark, I've got brothers that work at Ford. They have more in a 401k than somebody who went to dental school, has a giant debt, and has done it for 35 years. So if you're that vintage and trying to find your exit right now safely, it might be time to say, profit is, if I had been a little more focused on profit, it means I might not have had so much staff, and those 2 extra people I really didn't need, but I was taking care of them. Or I'm doing this treatment that I really shouldn't have done because I don't like it and it doesn't work out. And I shouldn't have taken all these insurance companies or whatever goes into all the mishmash of a business. And so you said something I wrote down here, that I know you're a big systems guy. And the way I perceive that is, your professor did it. He had systems, but they were his systems and only he could deliver them. How cool would it be if you could duplicate that? And that really is what a system is, right? And like I said, I know you're a big systems guy with the Dental Success Institute, and saying, okay, take what you do and repeat it over and over and over and over. And that way, now your associate Dr. Jones and your associate Dr. Smith you all have these repeatable processes and systems that now make the whole organism. I love that word. I'm going to steal that. So it's two things I'm stealing from you. The dental organism and dentalpreneur. I love the word.
Yeah,
I always give you credit when I say it. But
Thanks.
that's what makes that work is systems, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, the only reason I know this is because I've done it wrong. You know, I always say I stand up in front of, say, 1,000 people at a dental conference. And by the way, I spoke in front of 1,000 people for the Profitable Dentist when it was back in Destin.
Yeah.
I spoke in there 3 times, twice in Destin and once in Orlando. So I have a long history with the Profitable Dentist. And Woody Oakes was one of my heroes when I was still in dental school. And I'm so grateful for what he's created. And thank you for carrying on the torch, Steve. Yeah, so I've done everything wrong that you could possibly do. You know, the first 6 years the first 7 years of my dental practice journey, I had 6 dental practices, and they were all successful, but they were not systemized. I mean, I was the bottleneck in all of it. So I had 50 employees. I was doing 50 hours of chairside dentistry myself, and I was trying to run 6 dental practices at the same time. No rhyme or reason to how I was doing them, but I was reliant on the staff. So it was what I would call a staff-dependent practice. And I imploded. I ended up having to sell 4 of those because I had a near nervous breakdown because I was driving myself so hard. My phone was blowing up all day. If Susie and Amanda weren't getting along in one of the practices, I got a text. If front office and back office were near mutiny in one of my practices, I got the text and I had to put out that fire because nothing was systemized. Everything was completely staff dependent. And I had, thank God, the practices were successful because I was blessed and lucky enough to have stumbled across great office managers, and they were running the practices really, really well. But everything that they were doing was in their head, and they took that from the last 5 practices that they worked from, and practice 1 was being run completely differently than practice 4. You know, there was no consistency amongst them. And then I realized that if I was going to continue down this journey, I was going to have to figure out a way for all the practices to be run consistently in the same way. I needed to develop a systems-dependent dental practice, which is the name of my second book, rather than a staff-dependent dental practice. And that means that whether or not Susie, my all-star Michael Jordan that is running office number 1, stays or not, the practice will thrive and the organism will survive, right? So we developed this real reliance on operations manuals. So the operations manual for practice 1 is the same as operations manual for practice 6. The way that we communicate financial matters is the same. The way that we deliver treatment plans is the same. The way we greet them and handle each of the 8 touch points as they travel through the dental practice, that's all the same, and it's role played and it's practiced. The way that we set up a room and take it down is exactly the same way. It's so systemized that we have these placemats, these templates that we set up a crown prep this way. We set up an implant procedure this way. We set up a root canal this way. So anything from the way we answer the phone to the way we set up clinical procedures, the way that we assist for clinical procedures, the way that we handle financial matters and do treatment plans, the way the billing department contacts insurance companies and submits e-claims. That's all completely systemized, all completely written down in one place, which is the operations manual. So, you know, one of what I call my Fantastic Four, one of my favorite books is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And he talks about the franchise prototype. The franchise prototype being creating a systemized prototype of a business that you could replicate 5,000 times if you want to, and he uses McDonald's as an example. We call it the flagship practice model. So your flagship dental practice should be, you know, run this certain way. Your profitability should be 20%, which means that your overhead is no more than 50%. When your EBITDA is 20%, then we say, okay, you're ready to take this model and purchase another practice and replicate that model into the next and into the next and into the next. And I would not allow myself after that first implosion to buy my next dental practice until I hit all of those benchmarks that I created. 50% profit, 20% EBITDA, and a completely systemized dental practice. And that's what we've used to replicate time and time and time again. And now that we're working with clients that want to go from single to multiple, we say, these are the check marks before we bless you and say you're ready to go off and even start shopping for another dental practice. You have to make sure that your flagship practice is super tight. Until you get it super tight, it's not ready to replicate. So don't even start shopping yet. And that, if you stick to that formula, you'll be successful as a multiple practice owner. But if you take a practice that's 80% overhead, 75% overhead with a crappy culture, no operations manual, staff dependent, and then you say, this is too much to fix, I'm going to go buy this one across the street or 3 miles away. It looks like it's being run better. I don't want to deal with mine anymore. I'm going to buy the second. Both will fail. So we've seen it happen over and over and over again. But that's long answer to a simple question.
No, I have two observations. One is, and I love E-Myth, by the way. I think every business owner, and again, 8.5 out of 10 of you dentists are business owners, whether you know it or not. The E-Myth short book, love it. It explains a lot of things. What I noticed you didn't say in the laundry list of things you gave was you didn't say your systems for, and again, I'm not a dentist, so I only say this to be dangerous. Earlier on, you said 2 degrees this and 15 degrees that, and all I didn't put that into your system, right?
I have a clinical director. For years, the clinical director was me, but now we have a clinical director, and our onboarding process for associates is so tight now that I'm super proud of it. So the way that the every single position in the dental practice has an onboarding packet. And for an associate dentist, that packet is 75 pages. So they're required to memorize our core values and our mission statement. They're required to meet every single one of the team members. They take a quiz on the personal lives of the team members within their particular practice. They're required to get on a Zoom call, and we actually share cases every other week. And then they have, during the onboarding process, they are required to present 15 impressions. They're required to present post-ops for their class 2 composites. They're required maybe 10 or 12 of those. They're required to send us pictures of post-op bite wings of their seated restorations. They're required to go over 5 treatment plans with intraoral pictures and full mouth series of x-rays and health history of 5 treatment plans. So we're doing our best to calibrate as much as we can and to make sure that there's no gross clinical inconsistencies between what our philosophies are as a group and what somebody may have learned in a different group or in dental school. So we do our best to what we call calibrate everybody on our team. So all the front desk people should be answering the phone similarly with the same language. All of the associates should be delivering treatment plans the same way. We should be looking at things the same way as we would say this ideally is an implant first, second, maybe a bridge, third, a removable. So that's how specific we like to get with our clinical recommendations, but there is a fair amount of quality control in there too.
That's amazing. And that, again, I don't think that's a thing where you demand. So do you leave a little bit of room for technique?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the key. So at the end of the day, you have a measurable there. You have a measured outcome, but it allows room for technique. It allows room for somebody who really, who went to Marquette to get along with somebody who went to, Indiana.
Of course. And of course, there's certain universals, right? Like I was joking about 3-degree taper and 2 millimeter reduction. That's the ideal, but you can't do 17 millimeter reduction and have a little nub and the thing looking like a TP. That's just not clinically sound. It's not going to work. There's certain things that you have to define as acceptable. And that's what our onboarding process is all about. Some people might think that 17 millimeter reduction and 60 millimeter or 60% inclination is correct. Well, we have to correct that as quickly as possible, because the clinical stuff can all be fixed as long as they know what benchmarks and what ideal looks like for us. Of course, people are going to have different techniques and stuff, but there's certain clinical requirements that are absolutes.
Well, and that's again, as the non-dentist, though, I'm an outcomes guy. So, and I think that's how you measure that or bring that together. As long as that you have a lot of positive clinical outcomes, that's awesome. that turn into positive business outcomes. But you know, you come out of dental school and you want to spend 3 hours on a crown prep, that's not going to work for very long. So you have to, you know, it doesn't mean you do a crappy crown prep. It just means you talk to somebody who does them well and gets a positive outcome. So
yeah, part of that is we have them time themselves as well. So we're looking at a post-op X-ray of their finished preps, and the assistant times them for the first month or so. They time how long it took. You're absolutely right. You know, if it takes 3.5 hours to do a crown prep, then we need to figure out a way to coach them to be a little bit more efficient. Yeah.
Well, so if you've got a quick second, I know time's a little long for you, but leadership. I know you're a big leadership guy. We've had this discussion many times, and in the context of, I think a lot of practice owners don't realize they are the practice owner. They want to be the dentist, and they come in and they say, Mary Jane, you know, hey, I went to this conference over the weekend. Here's the workbook. Let's start doing this right now. Because the guy who spoke about it, you know, he doubled his practice in 18 months. So let's start doing this. And that's not leadership. So I wonder if you would, quick minute, just sort of your view of leadership, 30,000-foot view, and how dentists who are practice owners today need to be focused on leadership and what it is and how to integrate it.
Yep. I'm going to go back to Michael Gerber on this one. He has a great term. He talks about delegation versus abdication. Now, when you're talking about Mary Jane taking over everything and just saying, Mary Jane, I don't want to know even what you do in the billing department. You just do it. And here's I don't know, a 2-page summary of what I expect from you. Just go do it, and never checking back on her. You're delegating. You're not delegating to Mary Jane. You're actually abdicating her to do everything. That is not leadership. So leadership actually does not necessarily mean, to be a strong leader does not necessarily mean that you have to be Steve Parker and be able to get up in front of 1,000 people and have, you know, 200 podcasts and be able to hold a conversation and be the light that walks into the room and everybody stops what they're doing, like Bill Clinton, and looks in awe because he's looking everybody in the eye and he's charismatic and you can't get enough of what the guy says. Whatever, Bill Clinton, whoever. That's not necessarily a leader. That's charismatic and that's great. That helps in leadership, but it's not necessary. The only thing you really need for leadership is to be crystal clear about your expectations, right? I mean, how many times as dentists have we said, well, I told Mary Jane that 6 months ago, and I can't believe she still hasn't figured it out yet. But every time she forgets that one burr and she runs out in the middle of the procedure and comes back 30 seconds later and laughs and says, oh, sorry, doc, I keep on forgetting this. And you're not correcting her and you're not putting a system in place for her to be more successful, that is you dropping the ball as far as leadership. So in 90 seconds, leadership means you're crystal clear with your expectations. You're sharing them with whoever you're expecting these things from, right? So crystal clear with expectations. They know exactly what success looks like for their position. If you accomplish these 25 things every single day on a 5 out of 5, this is what success looks like for your position. That takes time to do that, to put those 25 things together. But we have a monthly, not quarterly, not yearly, but we have a monthly performance assessment for every single person in my organization. And they take a self-assessment and they rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 for 18 to 25 things. And then their supervisor takes the same assessment and says, well, you gave yourself a 3 on this. I would give you a 5. You're actually more awesome than you think you are in this area. Well, you gave yourself a 5 here. I actually think you're a 1 here. And let's do something. I'm not going to beat you up over it, but let's do something to get you to a 5. Instead of 1 out of 5, let's get you to a 5 out of 5. Do you understand why I gave you a 1 and not a 5? And you talk through that. So that's what our performance assessment looks like. That is being a leader and showing them exactly what success looks like in your organization and exactly what you expect from them. Okay? So that is expectations. Now, there also is accountability. So if they are straight 1s on your scorecard and they are giving themselves straight 5s on the scorecard, and 2 years later it's exactly the same, you're not holding that particular individual accountable. So they're not taking anything that you say seriously. So I'm not saying that you have to be a dictator. I'm saying that you have to give them some sort of resource to get from a 1 to 5. And if that means that you're hovering over them a little bit, or you're telling them that we're going to send you to this training, or we're going to have your supervisor, check at the end of every week to make sure that you did the following things. Those are resources that you're giving them in order to be successful. That is accountability. That's all you need to do. Be crystal clear with your expectations and give everybody on your team some sort of accountability to make sure that that they are living up to your expectations. And if you do that on a regular basis, everything's going to change for your organization. And guess what? You have just become an effective leader.
Well, and the neat thing really is so you started your practice however long ago, you've incrementally gotten to this point. Mm-hmm. So what do they say? You get the behavior you accept, and you've accepted this along the way. The cool thing is right now, everybody's shut down. You've got maybe a refresh or reboot of Practice 2.0. That's
the cool thing about what's happening. Yeah, Steve.
You have a great time to start this, right? To be a leader, the leader you could be going, the next 10 years. If you're 45, you got a long way to go. Yeah. It's a good time to sort of start with a clean slate, you think?
Absolutely. Of anything that's so positive about this is we can come back to our practices now and say, thank you guys so much for hanging in there. I can't tell you how much I respect you and how grateful I am for your loyalty. Good news. Here are some of the things that we're going to change. It's going to be like a clean slate. It's like a fresh driven snow. Here we go. Here are the things that are going to be different. Once again, we're going to keep this a positive environment, but here are some of the changes that we want to make. And I can only accomplish this if you guys are on board. Are you on board? It's just a great time to turn the page and to start over again. Because I'm going to say it again. The practice that you left 3 months ago is not the same practice that you're coming back to. And if you treat it as if, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. You're going to struggle. You're going to have challenges that you didn't even anticipate. So all of the flaws that you had in the practice over the last 11 years that were hidden because you got 100 new patients a month and we were on an economic tear, they are going to be very, very out in the open and very, very apparent, much more so than ever. So great time to start over.
So that's what you really do I want to make sure we got in because I love what you do, the Dental Success Institute. And most of this, what I love is that you've taken, so somebody who's starting out and doesn't want to take these beatings and go through this the hard way. Yeah. Sometimes, Mark, what do they say? You can be an example of what not to do.
Absolutely. Antiheroes versus heroes. Antiheroes are just as important as heroes, man.
Yeah, it shows you exactly what not to do. So
exactly.
So Dental Success Institute and Network. And the other thing I love is when you learn something, then you kind of sort of transition over to others, to peers who are doing that. Mm-hmm. And, that's a great place to. In fact, that's what Woody did many years ago. He just got practice owners together, dentists, and said, what are you doing that's working or what are you doing that's not working? And it became that. So can you kind of take one quick minute, explain what Dental Success Institute and the Dental Success Network is? And
sure.
Maybe anybody who's interested, I know you have some resources too, right? That you might share.
Sure. So the Dental Success Institute, we'll start with that. It is a paid community. It's a membership community of over 900 dentists. We have over $1 billion in collective revenue, if you can think about that. So let's start with the most basic. So if you have a network of 900 dental practice owners with over $1 billion in revenue, what kind of deals do you think you can get from vendors? So they view us as a 900-person DSO. And when we come to the table and say, you need to give us, or we would like a discount on your lab work, or we would like a discount on your supplies, or we would like a discount on your equipment, they say, well, what's your network look like? Well, we're 900 with $1 billion in revenue. They say, how much do you need?
Right.
So the first thing we are one of the biggest buying groups in the world. So the Dental Success Network is one of the biggest buying groups in the world, and we get the best deals. So from a cost-only perspective, that's one of the huge benefits of joining the Dental Success Network. Next is we have, I think, the most positive environment for people to ask questions. So we have a couple dozen faculty members, anything from implants to pedo to cosmetics to practice management to tax planning to anything that you could possibly think of. to run a dental practice, we have a faculty for it that run a virtual room inside the network. So you can go in there and say, hey, who do you guys use for a CPA firm? Hey, what do you guys do who do you use for implants? Hey guys, in real-time treatment, we have a real-time treatment room. Hey guys, I got a fenestration on this number 6 when I was placing this implant. What do I do right now? And somebody will answer your question. So anything that you could possibly think of from a clinical aspect or practice management aspect, we have chat rooms that are constantly 24/7 monitored by the faculty in there. It's an amazing positive community. It's a one strike and you're out as far as negativity. So if you say, hey, that open margin on number 3, I know we're talking about number 6, but that open margin on number 3, you're a hack of a dentist. How dare you?
Right.
The person is out. That's what you see in the free groups right now.
Yeah.
And then also we have, just like you have, we have hundreds of hours of continuing education that's accessible virtually. So that's the Dental Success Network. We actually have a free membership available right now. Just go to dentalsuccessnetwork.com/free45 and you can join the network. Just try it out for free for 45 days. No obligation at all. And then the Dental Success Institute is my higher level coaching. We have about 200 dentists involved with that. We have 11 what we call black belt coaches. The black belt coaches all have an 80% what we call systemization score, a 90% leadership score. We have assessments for all of this stuff. They all have dental practices that have 50% or lower overhead with 20% EBITDA. So those are our coaches. They've all gone through my curriculum. There's 11 of them. They coach on a monthly basis, one-on-one. We have a financial analyst that does all your financial reporting. They work directly with your CPA. They get a coaching call and reports from our financial analyst team once a month. We have a group of awesome travelers that go into your office. Right now, they're doing it virtually, and they teach your team one-on-one. We meet 4 times per year in different locations. Right now, we're doing those virtually, but eventually we'll be back to meeting again and have what we call hot seats and mastermind meetings. We have a company called Divergent. They get a membership to Divergent as well, which is Advanced Practice Analytics. So that is Dental Success Institute and our Elite Practice Mastermind. Those are the 2 things that we do. We do advanced one-on-one coaching, which is DSI, and then we have a great vibrant group, which is DSN. Everybody that's in DSI is also a member of DSN, and those are the 2 ways that I work with dentists. So I'm working with over 1,000 dentists every single week. And it's just been a blessing. Dentistry is the greatest profession.
Well, and on top of that, you're seeing patients, right?
I'm seeing patients. I still have 6 dental practices. Yep. And so I'm managing those. And I have 3 boys and a beautiful wife at home too.
You do? Yeah, absolutely. I think I met one of your sons. He had just he played soccer?
Yeah. He was in Orlando with me. Yeah.
He's a great young man. And so what I want to know is the secret as we wrap up here is how does Mark Costas find like 42 hours in a day or something? It is literally impossible to do all the things you do.
Let me tell you right now, it's very simple. You have to spend a huge amount of time developing a great team and a great culture. I don't do any of the management of any of my dental practices because I have 6 amazing office managers. I have area managers, I have regional manager, I have COO, I have a CFO. I have great coaches inside the coaching group. So I check in a couple times per week, but they have all of my organizations running so smooth that I get to come in and people think that I need 30 hours in the day. Actually, I have a nice, reasonable 8-hour workday. And amongst all of it, all I do is count on my team. I've trained them well. We have a great culture. And once you can get to that point where you have a great executive team and a great board of directors, all you do is just steer the ship, man.
Be the leader.
Be the leader. Yep.
There you go. Well, with that, and I know we went over a little bit, I think sometimes these things, speaking of organic, they just go really well. And you are a wealth of information. And, I appreciate your history with the magazine, The Profitable Dentist. And I've got down here, just so I've got it, dentalsuccessnetwork.com/free45.
That's correct.
And that gets, so, it's worth a month and a half just to poke around. If they poke around, use the resources, and then say, I don't like it on day 44, click a button and,
Absolutely.
Awesome.
No obligation at all. We don't want a dollar that we don't earn. So if we don't speak to you, if you're in there for a month and a half, geez, man, high five, best of luck to you. No hard feelings. We hope we bump into you down the road somewhere. That's how we do business.
Well, and it works, it shows. So, practice owners, Dr. Mark Costas, Dentalpreneur podcast in the background. And does anybody else have 1,000 other than maybe Howard?
Howard's got over 1,000, but I other than Howard, I think I have the most episodes.
That is, and they're all very good. It's one of the things I listen to. So I like podcasts that are, I call it lawnmower time or gym time or drive-in time.
Yeah, exactly. Doing dishes time. Yeah.
They're bite size. I put my little AirPods in, and you always have somebody. I always finish your podcast and with about 3 things that are rolling around in my mind 2 days later. So that to me, that's a good, that's something that adds value to your day and your business. And then Dental Success Institute, Dental Success Network, and plus all, an all around good guy. And, I hope that we get to bump into each other out in the world a little bit. I know you also travel and speak, and, so you have a pretty full life, but seem to have a good handle on it.
I do. I'm very blessed. It's been a great journey in dentistry. Thank God they let me in. Thank God. Thank you, Marquette. 1 out of 21 schools that saw a little something in me.
It only took one, right?
It only took one. Yeah.
All right. Well, practice owners, we appreciate you tuning in to another edition of Coming Back Stronger. And I really, really, really want to thank our guest, Dr. Mark Costas, again, longtime friend and just, a guy that you should know and can reach out to. You have a lot of Facebook groups, I think, that a lot of free resources. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, Dental Success Institute on Facebook,
okay,
or Instagram. Come check us out.
Okay, good deal. With that, Mark, I'm going to let you go see patients. And
all right, going to drop some implants now, guys.
Yeah, well, and appreciate you getting up early, so to speak, to come on out in Arizona and record this. And so practice owners, and one last question, how would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to? Just through the Facebook groups or that kind of thing? Yeah,
the easiest way is through Dental Success Network, but you can also email me directly at info@truedentalsuccess.com. TrueDentalSuccess.com is our main website.
Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes so if somebody has a quick question, so they can get a hold of it.
Right.
Practice owners, thanks for tuning in. Mark, thanks for coming on. And until next time, this is Steve Parker, Profitable Dentist Magazine, Coming Back Stronger. See you next time.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.